air show announcer once said, if you haven't gone to the bathroom in 2 hours, you're not drinking enough water. That's your gauge. Please don't deplete your moisture factor, because the last thing you want is to be rushed to a hospital. Otherwise, I hope you have a magnificent day here at AirVenture. If this is your only day, I wish you safe travels home. If not, I hope to see you again tomorrow morning. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Teresa. Ladies and gentlemen, Teresa Eamon, my favorite singer. My name is Connie Bolin, and it's my pleasure to be here again today for this presentation. And I know it's very warm here, so thank you for bearing with the heat. I continue to look for some type of shade for the bleachers. I have not been successful yet, but don't give up on me. One of these days we'll get that. So again, thank you for your perseverance, I guess I can call that, for being here. But the show is going to be worth it. Today we're going to feature the Korean War, the Forgotten War it has been called, but it is an honor, truly an honor, to have a gentleman with us who flew in World War II and then also went to Korea. He has a very interesting story about the transition, over the years following World War II to when he came into Korea. So we'll get to that a little later. And these beautiful aircraft, I have always been so fortunate that when I reach out to someone who owns an airplane or a veteran to ask them to be a part of Warbirds in Review, they gladly accept, and they go to great effort to have the airplanes here, and we are able to have the production crew that we have, thanks to the sponsorship from ScottsMiracle-Gro for many years. They have been our sustaining sponsor, and to Ron and Diane Fagen, I can often look out in the crowd and see their faces here watching everyone, so they watch me very closely, and they're sitting out here again today. I see their smiling faces. Ron and Diane Fagen came to me a few years ago and said, we'd like for you to have a building for that very talented production crew to be able to work from, have a green room. So this Quonset hut you see behind us, and also their continued support over the years, allows us to have this very talented production crew to put this on. And the Jumbotron, the videos that are produced by Scott Guyette with Sleeping Dog Productions and the other professionals that he brings in, to Sleeping Dog Productions, Air-to-Air TV, and to Kyle Guyette. She is the person who takes care of all of the details. I cannot in any way give her enough credit for how this all runs. And thanks again to all of you. And our moderator, I grabbed this guy a few years ago and said, I think you'd be good at that. And I think he's doing really, really well at that. His name is Brigadier General Retired Ed McElhenney. I can't say my own name. Ed McElhenney will be our moderator today, and he will introduce our guests. But right now, I'd like to introduce you to the Jumbotron and the video that will tell you a little bit about the Korean War and our featured guest. And our guest will be out here just following the video. So thank you again for being here.
When people think of the Korean War, they often imagine frozen hills, long marches, and brutal ground fighting. But above those mountains and rivers, another war was raging. A war fought at high speed, in extreme cold, under constant fire. A war in the air. From 1950 to 1953, the skies over Korea became one of the most dangerous battlefields in history. Pilots flew through heavy flak and unpredictable weather, facing an enemy that adapted quickly. Every mission meant crossing a narrow line between survival and loss. A Among the aircraft that carried that burden were two very different machines, the A-26 Invader and the F-51 Mustang. The A-26 Invader was a twin-engine attack bomber, fast, heavily armed, and relentless. Designed in World War II, it found a second life in Korea, flying night interdiction, close air support, and strike missions against enemy supply lines. Crews flew low and fast, often in darkness, hunting trucks, bridges, and rail yards. Flak bursts lit up the night sky. Enemy fire was constant. The A-26 did not fight glamorous dogfights. It endured punishment, mission after mission. The F-51 Mustang had a very different role. The primary difference between a P-51 Mustang and an F-51 Mustang is the designation change from pursuit, P, to fighter, F, after the United States Air Force was established as a separate branch in 1947. There is no fundamental difference in the airframe, as the F-51 was simply a redesignated P-51, typically the F-51D variant used during the Korean War. Once the long-range guardian of bombers over Europe in World War II, it became something else in Korea, a workhorse of the battlefield. Pilots flew low, close enough to see the ground rush beneath them, strafing, bombing, supporting troops on the ground in real time. Fast and agile, the Mustang was also vulnerable. Flying low meant exposure to machine gun fire, small arms, and unforgiving terrain. Every mission demanded precision, nerve, and complete trust in the aircraft. But aircraft alone do not tell the story. Wars are fought by people. One of those people was Joe Peterburs. Colonel Joe Peterburs was already a veteran of World War II. After returning from Europe, he continued to fly, and when his country called again, he answered. In December 1951, he was assigned to the 12th Squadron of the 18th Fighter Bomber Group, flying F-51Ds out of Hongsan Air Base in Korea. After just 5 hours of refamiliarization in the F-51, he was flying combat missions once again. Joe was a working pilot, one of thousands who climbed into a cockpit knowing survival was never guaranteed. Like many Korean War veterans, he flew quietly, professionally, without expectation of recognition. His missions rarely make for movies. Long hours, harsh conditions, and repetitive danger that wear down both the machine and the pilot. The stress was constant. The risk was real. And the job had to be done, again and again. He flew 76 combat missions over North Korea, sustaining battle damage on several aircraft. On one mission, he was wounded in the cockpit, suffering multiple facial injuries from bullets and shrapnel, and he survived to fly again. The air war over Korea marked a turning point. It bridged the gap between propeller-driven aircraft and the jet age, between World War II tactics and Cold War realities. But more than that, it revealed the quiet courage of those who flew. Men like Joe Peterburs.
Thank you very much. It is my honor and my privilege and my duty to serve my country for those years, and I do it all over again.
You've done it well. Well done.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Their stories remind us that history is not written only by famous aces or advanced machines, but by dedicated individuals who answered the call, climbed into the cockpit, and did their duty. When we remember the A-26 Invader, the F-51 Mustang, and the skies over Korea, we remember not just the aircraft, but the people who flew them.
And ladies and gentlemen,
All right.
the people who flew them,
Away we go.
maintained them, and the people who keep them flying today, as they make their way out, I'll hand it over to General McElhenney. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie.
Okay. Which way we going? This way? Okay, got it. Okay. Middle chair. Yeah. Great. Okay, thank you.
It's awesome.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for a
Awesome.
How you doing,
well-deserved
Sport?
welcome.
Oh,
I'm Ed McElhenney. I'll be doing the moderation. I'll steer the ship here this afternoon. I've been doing this since Monday, and I will say I'm most honored to be here. And I'll say this. My friend, Joe Peterburs, number one in the seat there, thank you so much for being here again, Joe. He was here last year, and I had the honor to meet him and interview him then. And as you'll be able to tell here shortly, he's doing well, and we've got more stories to hear.
thanks.
Next in
You want it
line,
open?
John
That's
Kubasik, another A-26. He's an engineer. Didn't fly in Korea, but was an engineer on the A-26. And last but not least, Roger Woolsey. I don't know how best to describe you, Roger. Warbird enthusiast, Warbird pilot, a strong supporter of our organization, a good guy, and yeah, all you got to do is ask. He nods his head and says, "Yep, I'll help out." And he's the guy with that beautiful A-26 over there that we'll get into. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit with Joe, and we're going to concentrate now on his Korean War experience, and get into what he did there, and then talk a little bit about the A-26, the airplane specific. We even had one here, I don't think, for a while, which is a good thing. And then let John talk a little bit about his experience in being in that airplane. And then we'll get into a walk around of each one. We've got a local expert up front here, Jason Mazzala. He'll be talking about the F-51 when we walk around that. And then we'll open up the questions. So that's kind of the scheme of things that we've got today. But once again, I'm tremendously honored to have all three of you guys here and tell a great story. And I have to say, if you weren't here last year, just a quick background story on Joe, and this is the World War II stuff. If you don't remember or you haven't been told, World War II P-51 pilot. If you remember, we had a P-51 over here, we had an ME-262 over here, and Joe told the story. Hey, what did he end up doing? He ended up shooting, that ME-262 down with that P-51. Took a little while to prove that, as I remember, but yes, it did happen. And then he was thrilled with what he did. Then he ends up, finding some other targets on the ground. He ends up, shooting some of those targets, but in the meantime, well, guess what? He gets shot down. Evades briefly, ends up, though, as a prisoner of war. Being the guy who he is, he sat there and said, no, you can't hold me. Well, he escaped, and he went east. And if you think about it, you go east, that means the Russian front. Yes, that's where he went. Got rescued by the Russians, or repatriated, if you will. The Russians looked at him and said, well, you're going to be kind of fighting with us, so here's a rifle. You're fighting with us for a while. And that's what he ended up doing. He was repatriated, and then, he came back. The war was over, and he didn't quit. He stayed, and there was an overage of pilots, so it's like, okay, so what are we going to do with these guys? And I'm going to kind of turn it over to Joe right there and just say, okay, so World War II is over. He's now doing whatever jobs the Air Force or Army Air Corps asked him to do, and then Korea cranks up. So, Joe, tell the story. How did you get from, a World War II combat fighter pilot to, flying F-51s in Korea, dropping things and shooting things? How'd you get there?
Well, when the war was over, there was a great reduction in force, particularly in the Air Force and the pilots. We had a lot of them in World War II, and we didn't have that much to do for them after the war. So many of us, they either got out and got into the Guard or the Reserve, and or got out completely and finished their educations, or those who stayed, like myself, we got administrative jobs. I was an adjutant of a group and I was a commander of a small unit, and then I went into finance. And in 1951, I was at Chanute Air Force Base in Illinois, and I was the accounting and dispersing officer for the Chanute Air Force Base. And during that time, I got a order saying report to Korea, to the 18th Fighter Bomber Wing as a combat pilot. So I packed up and headed towards Korea. And I got to Korea in December, the latter part of December of 1951, and reported into the commander, and he said, well, we're going to make you a finance officer. You can't fly combat. I said, why? He said, because you had two brothers killed. I had a brother killed in World War II, and I had a brother killed on the 5th of November in Korea. And I said, well, that's the Sullivan Act. You're the only, you can't send the last surviving son. I've got two brothers at home. And he relented, and he said, okay. So I had never dropped a bomb or dropped napalm or fired a rocket.
Wait, let's go back before that. When was the last time you flew a P-51?
It was the day I was shot down. On the
day was shot
April.
down was the last day he flew a P-51, and now here we are, 1951, right? And
right.
You're in Korea, and they say, okay, it's time to go to war again.
That's right. And I started flying combat and dropping bombs and napalm and all sorts of things, and flying close to the ground and being very vulnerable to all sorts of ground fire.
Okay, couple points here. First, you got probably just weeks or months of training before you went over to fly the P-51 again, right?
Oh, no. I got 5 hours in the P-51. I took a flight from, I was first at Pusan, where the headquarters was, and I went out and checked out and just started flying it, and got a few hours there, and then I packed my luggage into the 51 and flew up north to Hang Song, which was about 35 miles from the DMZ, and that's where the operating base was, and I was assigned to the 12th Fighter Bomber Squadron, the Foxy Few that you see here, and started flying combat. And I guess my fighter instincts came to to bear, and I did a pretty good job of.
Well, it goes now beyond that a little bit in that, hey, you know, when you were flying the 51 in World War II, you were truly a P-51. You were an escort type airplane.
correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you know, did you carry bombs? Did you carry rockets? No, you didn't. You know, you had guns, okay, and you used that to strafe with, but otherwise you were there to go kill, you know, ME-109s and F-190s and ME-262s.
Right.
And now all of a sudden they turn you into a close air support airplane, and this airplane truly wasn't designed to be a close air support airplane, but we had a lot of them. We had some pilots who could fly them, and the good news is we had a wartime veteran who had flown these things in the war, and from what I understand, you were able to kind of help people along who didn't have much
right,
training.
The most of the replacements or the assignments of pilots to the 12th to the 18th Fighter Bomber Group was they had no just like myself. They came over the last time they flew, or some of them were flying P-51s and the Guard and the Reserve, but they were not doing the type of job we had in Korea. So there was a lot of training that had to be done. And during that time period, I got a little disgusted with the whole thing, and I set up a training program and sold it to the group commander, and we started a new where the new pilots coming in would get 10 missions, teaching them how to drop napalm and bombs and fire rockets and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I got to ask, what kind of weaponry was it? You shot 5-inch rockets. You used you shot 5-inch rockets. Is that right? The 5-inch rockets was a primary weapon. Then you dropped bombs. And,
the primary mission was dropping bombs. Well, we had three different loads. You'd have either 2 500-pound bombs and 4 high-velocity, 5-inch high-velocity rockets, or 2 napalm and the rockets in your 50s, or you'd carry a wing tank, and those were for combat air patrol, and we usually would go over Chodo Island, which was in North Korea, off of North Korea, and we would orbit there, and then if the ground troops, we'd be called in for close air support missions. Ground troops were in trouble, and they'd call us in, and so we'd go drop our our wing tanks and strafe and fire our rockets. But and we did a pretty effective job. We got a lot of very good comments from the ground troops as far as our support of them.
All right, and you got beat up a little bit. You got shot at, and tell us, what
well,
happened on that mission?
My first battle damage was I was coming out of the punch bowl after dropping bombs on artillery targets, and as I was pulling off, I've got a flash in front of my face, and my aircraft started really vibrating. And it was vibrating so bad I thought I was going to have to bail out, and I didn't want to do that again.
Once was enough.
My base was only 36 from the DMZ, so I had about probably 50 miles to go. So I was able to nurse the aircraft back to base, landed, went to my revetment, and you turn the engine off, and the prop goes pum, 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 and then the blade stands right in front of your face, and there's a 50 caliber machine gun bullet right through one of the props.
Oh.
I said, I didn't know a hole that little would cause that much vibration, and but it was an experience. And you alluded to it earlier, the mission that I was wounded in. I was running a napalm. I was leading a squadron of 4 51s on a napalm run against enemy forces dug in a ridge along a mountainside. And we went in and we did a really good a napalm run, but then we came around to do the rocket shooting. And with your dropping bombs and rockets, you had to be perfectly straight and level, and because the bombs are going to go where your aircraft is pointed, and the rockets will go where the aircraft is pointed. And if you're in a slip or a slide, the bombs will go off that way, the rockets go all over the sky. So you have to be straight and level. Well, what does that do? That makes you a perfect target. So I got a small arms fire through the wing, through the cockpit, it blew the canopy, and hit the armor plate behind my head, and I felt my face was warm, and I reached up and I looked, and my head was full of blood. I called my wingman, and he had lost his radio, so I made some signals so he could come and join me and return to base. And I told him by signals that we were returning to base. So when we get back to home plate, he breaks before me and lands, and all the meat wagons and the fire engines run chasing him down the runway. So I then nonchalantly, and I drop. I go back to my parking place. I'm down getting my crew chief. He sees I come back with a canopy blown apart. He's wondering what's going on. He's up on my wing waiting for me to look up at him, and I look up at him. He gets startled and falls off the wing and didn't hurt himself, fortunately. But what happened is, of course, when the bullet went through the plexiglass, I got splattered with plexiglass. So it was 6 or 7 hours of picking plexiglass out of my face. But I was flying about 3 or 4 days later. Again.
So that was probably your second Purple Heart then, huh? That was the second
yeah.
Purple Heart. Okay. You know, we talked about, hey, flying low altitude, dropping napalm, shooting rockets, getting shot. What was your biggest fear? Was it small arms because you were so low? Was it AAA? What and weather was weather a factor that much down there? I understood the weather in Korea was not real good.
The weather was terrible. The weather was terrible. Of course, I was there during the winter, December to July. And most of my missions were fought in the early months of January, February, March. And it was not only the weather, but the mountains. It was mountainous terrain. We had no, we had a beacon, and that was all. And so the navigation ability was long, and the weather mixed with the mountains are not conducive to a long life of a pilot, unless you got some kind of a radar telling you where you are. And so it was extremely dangerous. The weather mixed with the I had a mission. Close air support mission. The ground troops were really dug in and getting the heck knocked out of them by enemy troops. I was called in for close air support. We got there, and normally you'd have a FAC, a forward air controller, flying an aircraft, and usually a T6 that would spot the target for you. But there was no T6 flying. There was no Army air. All I could do is talk to the forward air controller on the ground. And talking, he gave me an idea where the target was. I said, well, I'll go down and shoot some 50s in the area where I think it is. And he said, okay, and went down, shot, and he said, yeah, that's it. So I brought my crew together, and then we went down and bombed it. And he said, great, you got 90% coverage and 21 KIA. So, and that was all in weather conditions. And we were more concerned about the weather, getting hurt by the weather, than we were hitting the mountains than we were.
Okay. All right, I'm going to give you a break right now, so take a rest, okay? I'm going to talk a little bit about that airplane over there, that A-26. And Roger, I'm going to start with you. It's your airplane. You fly it a lot. Just give us a quick, I'll let you talk about it then. Talk about the engines, talk about the speed. The thing can I say this? It hauls ass. It's a fast
It
airplane,
does.
Okay? Yes. And he'll talk about, hey, the speed and some of the armament. And yeah, it was a weapons platform over there. It was great for what it did over there, which was, again, close air support. It was dropping bombs, was attacking people on the ground, saving our Marines and our Army guys down there on the ground. So Rogers, give us a quick heads up just on, hey, performance of the airplane, weapons, and that stuff.
Well, she's a very interesting aircraft, and a lot of people ask often about the A-26. They're like, we don't know much about it. We know about the B-17, the B-25s. She's really a victim of her own success is kind of the best reason for that, as it's been described by me. It's actually the longest-serving bomber in American history. She was both in World War II. She served in Korea, Vietnam. She even played a role in the Bay of Pigs, and I understand served the CIA all the way up to 1976. So it's one of the longest-serving bombers in history. In World War II, most all the bombers were game theory aircraft. So in other words, they were designed for the young kids, prior to the first bullet or bomb. And the only aircraft designed, built, put into theater during World War II, the bomber, that had real war lessons learned was this aircraft. So software terms, this is the 2.0 bomber that entered the war. So, for example, she had, instead of a B-17 carrying 10 of our men and women every time one was attacked or shot down, this aircraft carried 2. She served all kinds of roles, like you said, attack, bomber. They carried machine gun packs in the front. This nose compartment can come off in about 3 hours, and then she can go back on with 2 cannons and 8 50 cal machine guns.
There's a picture there, another one over there has that modification, as I remember. If you want to take a look at it, it's over there.
Yeah, Silver Dragon, the third one over, has that configuration. You can see that. As they went through the wars, they had different packages. I mean, by the time we made it to the the Vietnam, I mean, they even had rockets and exterior bombs and everything else. So the aircraft is served, and when you hear from John in a minute, you'll even hear she was a bit of carrying secrets across continents as well. So she's done everything from night missions, low and dirty work, and I think at one time it was described that she wasn't so much, especially in Korea, as an attack aircraft, but she just took a punishment. She went in and with just brute, able to take it with pure grit. But she was also the fastest bomber of World War II. In fact, she was so fast, it was the only bomber that could outrun a P-51. So she was over 350-knot airplane. So that's another interesting fact of the aircraft. So
how to do it? What motors are on it to do that?
You do need both motors, but I have shut one down on the aircraft before, and it's shocking. She only loses 15 knots. She's really clean. If you kind of, especially for the folks over here, you got a great view. If I can also use the PG-13 version, she's sexy, like the P-51. So these gentlemen flew, I think, 2 of the sexiest aircraft that ever lived, plus 2 of the fastest aircraft, which goes, I guess, with sexy. But she's very thin, great lines, and she was just lethal.
And in terms of armament, a internal bomb bay, and there we go again. Bomb bay could carry 4 1,000-pound bombs.
Yeah, it could carry 4,000 pounds of bombs all the way into deep into Germany, which was another nice thing. The B-17s could carry a heavier load, but if they needed to make those long distances, they had to trade bombs for fuel. So this, again, was that, gee, War Department, we wish you would have done A, B, and C, and that's the kind of technology or the kind of thinking or design effects that went into the aircraft so that when she did come into theater, she was very effective.
And turrets, too. It had a turret on top and a turret down on the bottom, right?
We did. You'll see that again on, there's 2 more examples. The 26 is behind us. It's got the turrets on top and bottom. And a couple, again, the comments are, well, my gosh, that turret's awful thin. How do they see? Well, again, remote control. So there is a gun turret on the top, a gun turret on the back belly in the back, and then, again, you put the 8-pack on the front. And again, I was told once that the bombing at one time, for example, in the Pacific Theater, we would hit 1 bomb on a ship for every 10 we dropped. They finally figured out with that 8-pack on that, with those 50 cals, they would literally come up and zipper an enemy ship and actually cut them in half with just the guns. So she became, quite the weapon.
But to go into, yeah, there is a real thin blister on top, a thin blister on the bottom. So, who's steering that gun? And there is one airplane over there that's got the periscope in it. And I don't know if you want to talk about it or John wants to talk about it, but I was down there underneath looking in this thing yesterday, and I got to say, I had no idea, and it's a really neat system. So can you talk to that at least a little bit, John?
Well, I can. It is an extremely heavily loaded aircraft. By the time that's loaded with guns in the nose and guns on the wings, or bombs on the wings, and then the tail gunner's position, which is essentially operated by one station, and the turrets move up and down.
And that station is aft.
That's in aft, yes. Yeah. The rest of it, the aircraft is really designed to take out columns of people and tanks and so forth. And it can do that because it is extremely loaded. Very reliable. It's got a good range. It's hard to describe, the capabilities of that thing because it's got so many capabilities. It's versatile.
And how did you fly it? What kind of missions did you fly with? He was in Europe, by the way.
I was in Europe.
He was in Europe, and he was an engineer on the airplane, so he went flying in it every time. And he doesn't or can't, I'm not sure which, doesn't want to talk about all the things that he did. Some of them may still be classified, I'm not sure.
Well, I was in reconnaissance, and I don't choose to talk about it. I never have, and I just feel that's my obligation. But at any rate, I did fly with it. I was the crew chief with a crew of 3. And then if the aircraft flew, then I would fly with it. And essentially, I can say it's a very, very reliable aircraft. In all the time that I've flown with it, we've had one little problem, and that was a mag went out, and I had to replace that. But other than that, I think I had a good crew, and that's the key to the whole thing. But the aircraft is just marvelous. It's hard to describe the capabilities of that, the total capabilities of that aircraft. And like Roger says, he's got more flying time on there than most people have, and probably has a better appreciation for its capabilities than I do even. But it is a fine aircraft, and it is. This aircraft is known as the Invader A-26. My aircraft was an Invader B-26. Now, the B-26 was designated that way someplace during its tenure, but there is another B-26, which is a bomber. And so it's very confusing to talk about the B-26. So we can just refer to it as an A-26. It's the same aircraft.
Okay, and it goes back to what Joe was talking, did you fly a P-51 or an F-51,
Yes.
I think you flew a P-51 in World War II.
Yeah,
Had they changed it to F-51 by the time you got to Korea?
Yes,
Okay,
it was
okay. So
F-51.
Well, those two had two different designation tasks, though, too, but this one had the same task. It was the same aircraft, only redesignated as a B.
Yep.
So,
well, you said it was very reliable and good motors, and Roger touched on it briefly, but it's got 2 motors, and I'm sure that every once in a while, and they're pretty well separated out there. I'm kind of a multi-engine guy, and I go, hey, if one of those stops or you got a problem, okay, how's it fly? I'm kind of curious.
She actually flies great. Like I said, I feathered it once in real life, and we only lost 15 knots. Now, if you don't feather that propeller, I'm sure that's a different story because that's a big air brake up there. But when they feathered those propellers, we lost 15 knots with it. She was amazing.
That's incredible.
It's an amazing airplane.
That's not bad. And you've taken it all over the world, from what I understand. You had one trip east out to Europe. He was trying, and I'll let you describe it. Okay, you went one way, and then you're thinking about going the other way, but there's some fuel issues. I'll leave it at that.
Well, as all of you are here as well, I mean, we really want to honor these vets, and it's one of the things we want to do. We're finding this a great platform, one, in honoring our vets and thanking them for why we're all here with this great freedom. They also say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and we also say, it's also true that an experience is worth 1,000 pictures. So we're also out there trying to kind of encourage that next generation and get them involved, everything from air traffic controllers to maintenance to, you name it, get them in aviation, to get them inspired. But we did take her to Normandy 2 years ago. We finished the restoration. I would say finished the restoration is probably the wrong word. We were a flying restoration, but we got her airborne on May 31st, and on June 1st we crawled in it and flew across the Atlantic Ocean and went to D-Day. We wanted to be there. And we literally had 4 World War II vets that were able to come to the aircraft, which was just phenomenal. The president of France came to the aircraft. It was very, very special to be able to do that. And I would also like to encourage anybody that's not been to D-Day in your lifetime, go there. It's a times 10 celebration every D-Day than it is to any 4th of July in the United States. I mean, they're still extremely grateful for what this country did for their countries in the world. It's an amazing. After that, though, we also wanted to honor our Korean vets. Last year was the 75-year anniversary of when, the landing at Incheon and the beginning of the Korean War. Another fun fact about the aircraft, A-26 was in battle for 4 days before MacArthur made landing in Incheon. So the aircraft actually opened the Korean War, and once they went into the peace, there was no peace, but they did a ceasefire. When they did the ceasefire, unfortunately, the A-26s were already on battle station, and they continued fighting for about 4 hours after the ceasefire. So they did lay the first punch, and they threw the last punch in the Korean conflict for South Korea, which is interesting. But we did try to fly there this year, because last summer we wanted to honor this summer we just came out of, but unfortunately there's a scuffle going on that side of the world, and we need to be able to land in Petropavlovsk, Russia for avgas fuel. We're not able to make Alaska all the way to Japan with the range on the airplane. So we had to scrap the mission until further peace comes into Russia for a fuel stop, but we're looking forward to getting to Korea with that as well, to honor our vets there, kind of make those international relations, keeping them tight.
Thank you. And I appreciate that effort, and I hope it comes true.
We do too.
And I'll say, as long as we're talking about veterans, I do this every show. I'm going to ask now, veterans, active duty, reserve, guard, full-time, part-time, please rise so we can just give you a round of applause. We want to say thank you for your service. We really do appreciate it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. All right, with that, we've got a little time for a walk around, and I'm just going to ask Jason to come up real quick. And a Mustang's a Mustang, yeah, but I'm just going to ask Jason to talk a little bit about the external stores and this airplane. He manages this airplane and manages it obviously very well. Was that too fast? And I don't know if you want to talk about the name of it. I'll ask Roger later to say, hey, why do you call this Million Airess? And there's a story there too, obviously. But Jason, what do you think? Name, where'd that come from? Who's it honoring?
As far as the name, I think that'd be a question for Joe. I'm not sure. I don't think that Joe named it, but maybe, do you know the origin of the name, Joe?
No.
The origin of the name, was that too fast? Do you remember who named
Where'd that come from?
No, I do not remember the name. And the naming of aircrafts were really in the beginning of the war, and by the time I got there, we weren't naming aircrafts anymore. Okay. So we flew what was available.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it must have been an attractive name because he chose this one for several of his missions.
He was talking about the 5-inch rockets. Go ahead.
So I'll just take a walk around and just kind of point out, everybody's pretty familiar with the Mustang, so I'll just point out a couple of the differences between the F-51 and the P-51 and the airplanes that you see during Warbirds in Review and out on the line that are World War II based as opposed to Korea. It's basically the same airframe. The F-51's a P-51D, but they upgraded, for example, the radio package. So you'll notice there's no wire antenna that goes to the tail like in some of the older airplanes, and it's a slightly different box sitting in the back. Also, what you won't notice behind the pilot is the battery. Late during World War II, they moved the battery from behind the pilot up into the engine compartment, which was made less wires to run up to the starter and generator, changed the weight and balance a little bit, and just kind of improved overall maintenance on the airplane. A little bit about the livery while we're here. FF943, so obviously this is the Foxy Few 12th Fighter Bomber Squadron, and so FF is for Foxy Few, and the 943 are the last digits of the serial number, which is 412943, which tells you the airplane was built in 1944, so that's the first digit there. As we walk around, a couple of things you'll notice on the Korean-era airplanes that you won't on World War II is the engine breather, which is this kind of giant tube that sticks out here, trying to get all of the oil away from the airframe a little bit, keep it cleaner. And then up on the nose, there's a little kind of fin or guard right there behind the yellow part. And that's kind of there to keep debris and oil and any other fluids from hitting the windscreen, but I can attest that it's ineffective and it doesn't work very well. Does not work. And then kind of down to the heart of it, the meat and potatoes is the stores. You know, like Joe had mentioned earlier, we have the 5-inch HVAR rockets. These are 500-pound bombs. They're not real bombs. They're replicas, so they're nowhere near as heavy. And they would put napalm on there. And the other thing that I can also attest to is that the flying characteristics with the bombs and rockets and all that extra hanging under the wings, it has a big effect. They decrease dramatically. And when you think about it, you know, Joe was flying close ground support, so he was low to the ground, probably had a lot of power on the airplane and having to make tight turns, and that gets difficult when you have a bunch of extra kind of drag and stuff pushing you around. You lose a little bit of effectiveness of the wing, so you got to be a little more careful maybe in your turns, especially kind of at lower speeds. So I think Ed mentioned earlier, the airplane was designed as kind of a high-altitude escort and fighter aircraft, and had the engine to do that, and a very smooth kind of high-speed wing. Wasn't really built for ground support. Then when they started using it in ground support, they kind of felt the effects of that. So, you know, Joe, being an outstanding pilot, had to put just a little bit of extra work in to be effective that close to the ground. And another story I just learned yesterday talking with Joe is, you know, the 50 caliber guns, those were the staple or the mainstay, and that's what gave the Mustang its bite during World War II in air-to-air combat. And in Korea, what I learned is when they go on a strafing or a diving run, Joe would use them as tracers, as markers. So with the bombs, if you had any bit of yaw in the airplane, or the nose wasn't exactly on the mark, your bombs would miss. So the cheat code, so to speak, was he'd fire off the 50 cals just to see where they hit before he'd release the bombs.
See if they're in a yaw on the aircraft, and yeah, smart.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
Which brings me to kind of the last thing, really, is these yellow bands here aren't just part of the color of the airplane. They actually served a purpose as well. Those are index lines or kind of reference lines for when you're doing a bombing or strafing run, to help kind of indicate sort of the angle that you're diving at, I would say. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we're honored to be here. Like Ed mentioned, We work for the Roost, who manages a collection of airplanes owned by Stuart Walton, and who's sorry he couldn't be here today, but is completely honored and privileged to support Joe and to have his airplane here. And special thanks to Joe for signing our gun doors. So from yesterday forward, Joe's name will live with his airplane, and we'll honor him every time we fly.
Outstanding. Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Okay, Roger, next. Let's walk around the Invader here a little bit and just point out, hey, the important stuff that people might want to know. We already talked the engines a little bit. Oh, but as long as we're here, hey, it's called Airess. Where in the world did that come from?
Well, being that Millionaire is kind of the big sponsor of the Airess, and believe me, people come to see our live Airess more than they do the pilots, that's for sure. So Miss Michaela is very popular at autograph signing, and but back in the war, it was very important. Having nose art, they were a long way away from home, and they were living real life trauma daily. It was good to kind of have some comedy and levity and
motivation.
Little motivation to get home. So the nose art was a very important part of our history. The engines are kind of interesting. They call these the double row wasps. So as you, for somebody that doesn't know, you're looking at the aircraft. You're looking at the cylinders there. There's 9 cylinders. This is actually a double row, so there's a second row right behind it. So that makes the engine twice as powerful. Over 2,000 horsepower aside. Kind of fun for the mechanics in the house. There are 72 spark plugs in this aircraft. And, to kind of give a little bit of, further, deeper appreciation, and it's not on us, it's on every single one of these Warbirds you see, for example, but for every 50 hours, those things must be replaced. They're almost $200 a spark plug. So you've got 72 times 200 every 50 flight hours. So that's just a small example of what it takes to kind of keep these things alive. So for the Walton family, everything from ScottsMiracle to these folks that do these things, I mean, I buy their products every time I can because I think it's an amazing piece of history to be able to kind of continue to tell those stories. But interesting. The bomb
supercharged,
section,
by the way, they're supercharged also?
They are supercharged. The aircraft can go all the way to 24,000 feet, higher than the pilots can go. Another fun fact, we flew the aircraft going over to, when we took it to Normandy, we took it at this time of year. And going over the North Atlantic in this aircraft, we only went to 12,000 feet. We got to 19 below zero inside that airplane. 19 below. And now, thank goodness for our DC-3 friends. They went ahead of us. They called back and said, put on your thermals. So we did. But it really gives you an appreciation, again, for what the conditions these gentlemen behind me had to fly in. They did not have thermal underwear. They did not have the great, Minnesota, Wisconsin electric socks and gloves. And they didn't have noise-canceling headsets with Bluetooth stereo music to keep you alert.
Is it a loud aircraft? I mean, I've flown B-25 stuff, and I thought the B-25 was really loud. How does it compare?
I would say it's almost got to be more loud because, again, the B-25 with a single row of pistons and this a double, and they're right there by the pilot's ear, as you can see. So, again, it's just shocking. Not only the punishment the aircraft could take, but what the crew endured in order to do that. And you got to remember, these guys were, 18, 19 years old, and, like we just heard from Joe, 5 hours of training, here are the keys, go out, don't get shot, and lay a lot of bombs. Yeah. And you've got to get a deep appreciation. Now, we've done a lot of work, I said, a flying restoration. We now fly this aircraft, and she's nice and dry. But again, that first trip, I mean, and that's today's technology. But back in that time, every thunderstorm, we got completely wet. In the snow, it snowed inside the cabin of the airplane. And I think that was very normal back in the day on both aircraft.
You're talking about drips.
Yes.
This isn't your airplane. No, it must be somebody else's, right? Okay.
Well, for the Harley owners or riders in the room, if she's not dripping a little oil, she's out of oil. So that's the radial engines. Now, the Merlin is a much tighter, cleaner aircraft, and they put a lot, better technology on that V12. But on these radial engines, they drip. In fact, the manual on this aircraft calls her to burn 2 gallons of oil per flight hour, per engine.
Wow.
So again, fun maintenance facts.
Wow.
So that's kind of the aircraft. When the aircraft first came into the war, again, it was the fastest bomber 2.0. But Hap Arnold was not very happy with the aircraft at first because when he got in the aircraft, he couldn't see very well. So, for example, at D-Day, when they entered the war, the aircraft was there, but he said, you guys go make some noise on the sides and do it to be a distraction. He didn't want it in the war. He thought it was just too not good of a battle aircraft because he didn't have good visibility. And then after about 2 months, they realized it was the best bomber, best fighter they had, and they threw it right in the front line, and that's why it made the big difference. But it took slow adaptation for the aircraft as well.
How about approach speed? What are you flying approach speed at?
Well, the aircraft, we like to approach it about 140 normally coming in, but we get it down to about 120 on the touchdown, which is the blue line for the pilots in the room. That's where if you lose an engine, you can continue to fly. If you get her below that blue line, below 120, and you lose an engine down low, you better land. Don't try to power and go up because she will just roll over her back because it's too much power on one side for too little airflow over the wing. So that 120 knots is the magic number. And believe me, my crew in the aircraft, we fly with 5, which is not necessary, but we fly with 5 in mind, and they love to hear me say 120. Everybody stops this, and it's wonderful. So,
How about max gross weight?
Max gross weight, another interesting characteristic. We have never been over 24,000 pounds in the airplane since we've had it. You know, that's full of fuel, 6 of us in the aircraft, and all of our luggage and oil and everything we can carry. The aircraft can go to 36,000 pounds, though. So she can go to 36,000 pounds normal operation. That's not even war weight. So she can get up to 42,000 with war weight.
How much runway do you like for takeoff and landing?
Well, they say the 3 things wasted in aviation is the runway behind you, the altitude above you, and the fuel you left in the fuel truck. So I like as much as I can get. But we did operate her when we took her over to Europe. The Polish were very excited about having the aircraft and begged us to come to a NATO event, and we operated out a 3,200-foot grass strip.
Wow.
And she could do it.
Outstanding. All right, I'm going to open it up to questions. Thank you, Roger. Appreciate it very much on flying it, sustaining it, and I hope you make it over to Korea. That's all
I
I'm
hope we
saying.
do, too.
All right, I'm going to open up to questions right now and see what kind of questions people have on either of these aircraft. I think we've got some good knowledge down here, and go ahead.
Got 2 questions. Do you have counter-rotating props, and then how do you keep from shooting the vertical stab?
Negative on the counter-rotating, which is probably why that 120 knots is another important factor on it. They turn the same direction. Good question.
Yep.
And they did finally, a whole bunch of very excited young 16, 18-year-olds in World War II did shoot their own tails off in the beginning of the wars, and that was a lesson learned. So they, thank God for the engineering and some good thinking out there. They found ways to do cutouts on the gun, so where it hit a certain, just like they did in World War I.
Yeah.
They finally figured out how to shoot a bullet because it used to be the pilot and the gun behind the propeller, and they shot their own props off. And so they had to get it to where they would time it to go in between the blades on the turns, and they finally did the same on the gun turrets in the back end to kind of keep it from shooting itself and all the important bits and pieces.
Okay, gentleman in blue up there. Go ahead.
Hi. I'm told there's only about 3 or 4 of these left flying. Is that correct?
I'm understanding there are 90 P-51s that are flying approximately in the U.S. and the A-26. They claim there are 6 airworthy in the world. There were about 2,500 made, but there are 6 flying, and we can verify 5 that we're aware of.
Okay, great. And
you have 3 of them here, which is quite amazing.
Which is pretty amazing. And you've got a double row 9 in there. What's the cubic inch displacement on these?
Can I dial a friend?
You got him, okay? Yeah, Google, okay? Yep.
Yeah,
all right.
Google.
We got another question up there, I think. Yes, we do.
Thanks. This is for John or Roger. Nowadays, you're limited to how much you can fly a plane before the engines have to be rebuilt. Back in the day, what was the guiding force before finding out that the engine either has to be rebuilt or you've flown a certain number of miles? Did they have to be rebuilt at a certain time, and then were both engines rebuilt or worked on equally?
Yes, they have we have a regular period of time that engine can run, and then it goes in for overhaul. So that engine doesn't stay on that aircraft forever, as long as it'll run. It's got a period of time where it's taken off, goes in for a replacement, and another overhaul engine comes in. No.
Separately.
Depending on when it was the cycle was due.
Okay, one in the back. Go ahead.
Well, thank you for doing this. And did it get rescued from a jungle, or what's the history that it?
History of the A-26?
Yeah.
All right, Roger, where'd it come from?
This one actually operated in theater in World War II. She was in theater even during D-Day, which we could find in the logbooks, which was very interesting. She then went to the Pacific and also operated in Korea. She avoided Vietnam, then went into water bombing into the Canadian. So she, speaking of versatility, as the gentlemen say, she also went into water bombing in the Canadian forestry up there. We all wish she was doing that last week, right?
Yeah, no
Yeah.
kidding.
If you were here.
Yeah, we could have used it.
And she left that, went into a museum. So she lived in a museum. We're the ones I hate to say we rescued her out of a museum, but we did, because I'd rather see her as a flying museum than stuck on the ground. But that's what we did with this particular aircraft. Yes,
All
ma'am.
right, thank you. Any others? Oh, there's one down low here. Go ahead.
Got a question for Joe. Given how the European theater took you to about 25,000 feet and Korea brought you back down to just a couple thousand, how did life in the cockpit change? Was it more comfortable down below, or did the gear change up?
Okay, so in the European theater, you were high, flying high most of the time, but occasionally down low. But in Korea, you were down low most of the time. So did you have a temperature problem? Were you hot? Were you cold? Or was it pretty? I know it was cold outside, but was it okay to fly that thing?
Yes, there was a considerable psychological difference between the two. In World War II. We were a bunch of hotshots, 19, 20-year-olds, and we were considered, felt we were the knights of the sky. Where in Korea, we were usually not a lot, but older. I was 26 in Korea.
Oh, my God.
And I had 2 kids at home, so you weren't quite as full of you-know-what and vinegar. So
26 is old.
All right, thank you. All right, time for one more question. That's going to be it. We're going to have to shut it down. Go ahead. Yeah.
So I was lucky to work with the A-26 with Roger when they came over to Europe. But I've got a question for Roger to kind of put to everyone about some of the nose wheel issues and the specifics around how you have to fly her into the runway when you land.
Okay, nose wheel and the A-26.
Yeah, the A-26, in fact, this one here behind me had a nose collapse on its way to theater. So she left the Long Beach factory, and before she made it to war, she had a nose collapse on the way in, and it was a very common thing. So all aircraft, as pilots know, you come in to land and you start to flare the aircraft, you land the back, and you basically stall it into the landing and then allow the nose to land. The problem with this linear flow wing, which was a new design, that's how she got so much speed, part of why she got so much speed out of the aircraft. But when you go to flare it, that wing just blankets the tail, and now the tail cannot hold it, and the nose slams hard down on the runway. So they did have a reputation for nose collapsing, and that's for sure. And I, embarrassed to say it, but, happy to share it, but I'm a 26,000-hour pilot, and about 6 months ago I landed on a 12,000-foot runway out in Vegas, and I had so much runway, I thought, I'm just curious how soft I can put this if I land the back end. And I let the back end touch, and the nose slammed so hard, I thought to myself, oh, my God, that's how it happens. And the poor boys had to fly out and inspect me. I didn't want to fly it again. It was the worst landing of my life. So when they say don't flare, they mean it. So you have to fly this like a carrier, just like you do aircraft on an air carrier. All three wheels at the same time, just drive it onto the ground.
Lesson learned.
Lesson learned.
Lesson
That's
learned.
right.
All right. I've been preempted. One more. Go ahead, ma'am.
You know I have to break rules. I'm Sabrina. My name's Bree. I'm Papa Joe's granddaughter. And Rick, can you stand up? This is his grandson. Mary, can you stand up? This is his favorite niece, Mary. And if you're wearing a Josephine hat, can you stand up?
All right.
That's Papa Joe's family right there, because he came last year and he met Papa Joe. Honestly, this is Papa Joe's home. Wisconsin is his home. And so we want to say thank you to Ed and Connie for having us back. Papa Joe is 101.
Years young.
He's
101 young.
He's going to be 102 in November. And then we want to tell Mr. John, who's 94, going to be 95 when? 94 next week.
Yep.
Another young
Thank
one.
you so much for what you guys did. We can't thank you enough. Your sacrifice for us lets us be here today. So you're the young whippersnapper sitting there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. We love you guys. We appreciate you. Papa Joe was in the hospital 3 weeks ago. I said, I don't think we should go. He said, I'm going. And he's here. So we want to say thank you guys.
Fighter pilot.
And we have family here. If you know Papa Joe, please stand up. Jeff, everybody who knows Papa Joe, stand up. Thank you. Now, thank you guys so much.
Good one.
And just to let you know, Papa Joe has written a book, and it's going to be over in the merchandise building, which is right over there. And he's going to leave pretty quick, right after we finish here, and he's going to be over there. So if you want to buy his book and read some more of the stories, it's over there, and he'll be happy to sign your book. So with that, I say thank you all for being here very much. And Joe, my friend, I hope to see you next year.
Okay.
I'll tell you that right now.
It's a date.
Okay?
It's a
Okay?
date.
It's a date. Outstanding. Thank you. John.
What a guy.
Well done. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, folks. We got a couple of helicopters. We'll see you then. Appreciate it.
Inspired by the veterans in my family, I started the Gary Sinise Foundation in June of 2011. It has been my honor to support and uplift our nation's defenders, our active duty service members, first responders, veterans, and the families who sacrifice alongside them. This has all been possible thanks to our incredible supporters. I am grateful to each and every one of you for your generosity. You help us to bring hope and healing to so many. To all of you, and to our nation's heroes who are serving, have served, and to your families, thank you. To learn more, visit GarySiniseFoundation.org.
"40 years ago, a community came together with a shared purpose: to train better, fly smarter, and make aviation safer. From humble beginnings to a worldwide network, the North American Trainer Association has shaped generations of pilots and instructors. Flying is a discipline. It's the early mornings, the checklists repeated, the lessons learned again and again until precision becomes instinct. And safety? Safety is an attitude, a mindset carried into every decision, every flight, every generation we train. For 40 years, the North American Trainer Association has stood for excellence, not just in how we fly, but in how we think, prepare, and lead. Because in aviation, discipline builds skill, and attitude saves lives. Here's to 40 years of commitment, and to the future we'll keep shaping, together.
The name Jane is actually the name of his wife. Making it exactly how it was flown by actually Rick Marshall, who was the AA Spider.
Keeping these airplanes flying preserves stories that will no longer be told by the greatest generation.
Through restorations and flying, we were able to continue their legacy and remember their sacrifices. And that's really the most important thing when you're flying these airplanes. When you go somewhere, you have the responsibility to share with people what they did, and that these aren't just airplanes, they help save our freedom.
It's hard to imagine a more podcast-worthy aviator than Robert Hoot Gibson. He's a degreed aeronautical engineer, a naval aviator with 300-plus combat missions, graduate Top Gun, graduate Naval Test Pilot School, NASA astronaut commander with 5 space shuttle missions, chief NASA astronaut, Southwest Airlines captain, world champion unlimited class air race champion. A new season of Hoot's Hangar, the exclusive podcast produced in Hoot's home studio, will shortly be in production. In this series, Hoot and an endless string of compelling guests cover all things aero combat flying, space travel, air racing, aircraft design and performance, high-profile accident investigations, RC modeling, home building, and more. Join Hoot Gibson and his guests in Hoot's Hangar, the most compelling podcast in aerospace. Now, get unlimited access to all episodes for less than a trip to the coffee bar. Just $9.95 a year. Just go to air-to-airtv.com to gain access and subscribe.
Buck 1, Warhawk 4-0, second cam has bragged.
Warhawk
40 Fox 1, have you loud and clear. Enemy vehicle, IVO, Blue Mountain runway.
As much as I'm looking forward to having a successful mission, cleaning all this up and getting back, like, it's kind of sad that this could be the last time that these guns ever fire again.
This side, hot, ready to go. That side is moments away from all 6 ripping down range.
I'm free hot. 100 feet MSL, 5, vehicle convoy, 6, target location, Blue Mountain runway, 7. Final attack heading 200. Attack heading 200. Copy all. Here, arm and hot.
I guess I was fairly apprehensive the whole time that I was flying in combat. And I guess there's good reason to feel that way. I'm there to cause a lot of damage and a lot of harm, and therefore they would like to damage me. And I was 25 years old at that time. Top Gun was really a thrill. I must have done well in actual combat because at the time I was just a lieutenant junior grade, which is a first lieutenant in the Air Force. And so I may have been the very first lieutenant junior grade to go through Top Gun. STS-27 was my third launch, and it was only the second launch after the Challenger accident. Well, I will never forget, we maneuvered the arm, and Mike Mullane was my arm operator, so he moved the arm over there, and we brought up the television image of the right wing, and I looked at what I was seeing, and I said to myself, we are gonna die. Well, there's a lot of piloting that goes into it, a tremendous amount of piloting that goes into it, because you're going to wind up passing other airplanes. You're going to get in a duel with another airplane that's fairly closely matched. So there's a ton of satisfaction from doing that. And hey, let's just talk about the racing itself. It's fun to fly low, but it's dangerous.
In 1937, Japan began a war of conquest to gain control of China's vast natural resources. Japan needed them to supply its planned conquest of the entire Pacific region. By 1941, estimates are some 1 million Japanese ground troops were committed to this effort, and the Imperial Air Force had begun a merciless campaign of indiscriminate bombings of Chinese cities and civilian centers. The loss of innocent life and suffering was incalculable. China's Air Force was all but non-existent. There was no way to defend the cities. But in 1941, Claire Chennault, a retired U.S. Army Air Corps officer consulting with the Chinese Republic, convinced President Roosevelt to let him recruit and supply a volunteer force of U.S. pilots to defend China's skies. The legendary American volunteer group, Flying Tigers, were born. This year marks the 85th anniversary of the AVG Flying Tigers. Perhaps you've been concerned with the failure of our schools to teach the history of World War II, the event that literally shaped the world we now live in. Air-to-Air-TV.com is a growing archive of World War II history. With this special offer, you can give the gift of history to a student or anyone who will value it for less than a trip to the coffee shop. Just go to air-to-air-tv.com to gain access and to give the gift of knowledge.
At JetGlo, we believe an aircraft is more than aluminum, paint, and rivets. It carries stories. Stories of sacrifice, stories of service, stories of the men and women who stepped forward when our country needed them the most. As a veteran myself, I understand that these aircraft are not just museum pieces. They are flying reminders of the courage, skill, and sacrifice of generations before us. That is why Warbirds in Review matters. Every time one of these machines starts, taxis, and takes to the sky, history becomes real again, not just for pilots, not just for veterans, but for families, young people, and the future generations who need to see it, hear it, and feel it. At JetGlo, we are proud to support the Warbird community, aircraft owners, operators, and the people who work so hard to keep these aircraft flying. We specialize in aviation-only detailing, aircraft appearance and preservation care, bright work polishing, window restoration, ceramic coatings, and condition maintenance, because preserving an aircraft's appearance is part of preserving its legacy. JetGlo is based right here in Oshkosh, and we are proud to support Warbirds in Review. To every veteran, restorer, crew chief, pilot, and volunteer who keeps history alive, thank you. JetGlo is proud to stand with you, because every flight deserves a JetGlo.